By George, I think I've got it. All right. I like the way this is framing up when I put the camera a little bit of more of a distance from me. Let me give you a little bit more light upon this subject. No, I'm not liking that so much. All right, we'll just go with natural light. Okay, it's the 21st September, 2022. It's Wednesday morning. Good morning. What are the advantages of tuning into my channel? I'm Dr. John Taylor Kent. And thanks for joining me here, because I know that if you're here, you're a rarity, and I appreciate the time with you and you giving your time to me. Please like this and share this video. I'm not getting many likes at all. I'm not getting many views at all. And if you want to support the channel, don't send me any money. Just buy my Bible. Buy my Bible and give it away as a gift if you want, or use it in a ministry if you want to take it into the prisons. It really does belong there. Those guys read the Bibles more than what you think. When I was working in the prisons, it shocked me how well some of them knew the Bible. Now, their view of it was a little bit on the twisted side, but the crazy thing is some of their ideas actually were right. Come on. Come here. Come on. Up. Okay. There she is. All right. Yeah, that's my puppy dog. She's 9 months old. Oh, yeah. There you go. You got a good view of her then. Okay. All right. Okay. She's naked. No collar on. Off. Good girl. Yeah. She's trying to learn how to be a regular puppy dog. As you can tell, she's a super dog. She really is very intelligent. She's so smart, it's kind of scary. I trained her up in place 3 or 4 months ago, and I mentioned it one time, and she went to it right away. That's what we have to learn next. We have to learn that so I can put that vest on her and go into the restaurants with her and have her stay in place. That's going to be a rough one. We've got other things to work on, but she's only 9 months old. And as much as I'd like to have her with me all the time and everywhere, she's not ready for it. So it may take another 9 months. If it's happening another 9 months, I'll consider that quick. My last dog, he was 5 months old, 5 years old before I started thinking about it. And didn't start taking him in places till he was almost 7 years old. But we had a lot of time in together before that. What I want you to do is I want you to understand that we're going to be covering some concepts that are not beginning concepts. I'm trying to waken my brothers and sisters in Israel up. And a lot of you are wondering, who are our brothers and sisters in Israel? Well, basically, we are descendants from Israel, who was earlier born and named by his parents, Jacob. And Jacob wrestled all night on the banks of the Jordan River with a man who refused to identify himself, refused to give Jacob his name, and I guess he didn't play very fair at that. He touched him in a hip socket and wrecked one of the sinews and kind of gave Jacob a permanent lift, but he also changed his name to Israel, meaning he who rules with God. Notice it's with God. It's not that you rule and you got God on your side, just carte blanche. There are conditions, and the conditions are spelled out in the Bible. We have the Ten Commandments. We have a lot of actual commands in there that we haven't even pulled out of the Bible and tapped into. So my favorite one is love, truth, and justice, in that order, because without the truth, you cannot have any justice. And I believe that's a command in the Bible. At least it came through that strong to me. Another one is about intermarrying. And I got to talk about this because, and I'm also going to go on the other side of the line to the other extreme. Black Hebrew Israelites. Had a friend on Facebook, Rudy Dent, D-E-N-T. Rudy was one of the New York City Fire Department survivors of the bombing. And he's a marvelous man. And he and I got into a debate, and he thought that the blacks were the Israelites. And he showed me the evidence for it, and I looked at it, and I understood it. However, there are two things. One is that he recently passed away, and in light of the memory of my friend, I will be discussing this stuff, and I will be carrying on that argument in support of them. Now you'll say, why? Why do that? Why do that, Dr. Kent? I mean, my God, he's black. Heck, I didn't know it. I didn't care about it. I liked Rudy. Yeah, he was black. The thing is that we don't have really full information or good documentation. Okay? So we can argue about it from here till kingdom come, and that's probably exactly what will happen. The kingdom will be here on the earth before we come to an agreement, but we will come to an agreement eventually. But the most important thing to me is that it says every knee shall bow to Yahweh. So who am I and who are you to tell them that they can't worship the same God? Okay? That's about as inclusive as I want to be, though. Because when I pull from the Bible, I pull from, well, a lot of things that a lot of you out there are pulling from as well. I pull from the original creation, the 10 laws, or what's that proper word for it? 10 principles, 10 axioms, I'll call them axioms, of creation, in which, the Lord created them kind after kind. Well, he created the earth, the creation, all that's here, exactly the way he wanted it. And he said it was good. So what we have done is we have mixed things up, and that's a problem. Plus, we have spoilers. We have the bad guys that were on the planet here, I believe, before the last Earth Age. Several Earth Ages, maybe 6 Earth Ages ago. So I stay pretty open-minded on this. So when I look at those 10, kind after kind, and the order of the creation, I think that Yahweh established the principle. He loved it the way he created it, and he wants it to stay that way. Now, we have created hybrids. We've done it with our planting. We've done it with our animal husbandry, and we've done it among ourselves. And so I regard most of us as being hybrids today. Why do I say that? Well, you really don't know what's in your genetic material. She's insisting I pet her down here. You don't know. You don't know how much adenosine, Cro-Magnon, or Neanderthal that you have or the other person has. Well, we could get into that. But the most important thing, I believe, is that we learn from the Bible. And one of the most important lessons in the Bible, in which Yahweh, Creator Father, has this in the Bible 5 times. Not a double witness, just 2, but at least 5 times. And you can go through it, count it up, and report back here and let us all know what you find and what you believe on that. So basically, the warning in Genesis was, do not give your daughters to the people of the land for wives for their sons, and do not take the daughters of the people of the land for wives for your sons. So in other words, don't intermarry. Okay? Now this is the big one. When you people want to cross what you call races, that doesn't necessarily mean something real evil is going to come out of it. But what the passages refer to in the Bible, those 5 warnings, evil came from that. Because basically, the people of the land were Canaanites, descendants of Cain. And Cain was the first murderer. And Cain himself was a hybrid from an illicit union. So, and basically what happened is a couple hundred of the angels, fallen angels, abandoned their post in heaven, maybe got kicked out, thrown to the earth. And they gathered on Mount Hermon, and they conspired among themselves. And they found the daughters of men comely. And they decided, hey man, let's get all what we can. They decided they were going to go into them and take all that they wanted for wives. Now you need to understand something. There was no government with marriage licenses back then. Marriage was basically the sex act. When you had sex, you were marrying, basically, is what I'm saying. And I know some of you are going to disagree. Some jackbutt on Facebook gave me some grief because marriage refers to the marriage of Christ with Israel. Okay, well, how am I going to argue against that? I don't need to argue against that. Why is he going to put that up there? I mean, I would have, if he had referred to it, what can I say? I just wish he hadn't put it up there as a challenge. Put it up as a point of information. You know, it doesn't mean that what I'm saying is wrong. You know, one of us doesn't have to be wrong. We both can be right, right? Well, these fallen angels decided to go into the daughters of men and intermix. And one of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels is named Gadriel. Gadreel. There's 2 other ways to spell it, I know. There's one with an I and one with an A. But I was looking it up for my blog, and Google come up with Gadriel, right in Wikipedia. Even declared he was one of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels. So we now know there were 5 leaders out of the 200. It's not a biblical source, but I'll take Wikipedia for it, because if the enemy's going to rat on themselves, let them do it. Let them tell us about themselves. They'll do that if we listen to them closely enough, you know. If you listen to a man closely enough, he'll tell you about himself. So Gadriel seduced Eve. Now, we don't have good data on that. We don't know if it was an act of prostitution, like some of my brothers have claimed. We don't know if it was an act of outright rape, violent rape. There's some myths about legends of that. The Bible also says that they took all that they wanted for their wives. One of my brothers, one of the teachers actually, he pointed out that the women did not go willingly, because women are given in marriage, they're not taken in marriage. Well, I think that's a very genteel, formal way to think of it, and I regard his opinion highly on that. Because there's other people out there who claim that the women went willingly and gladly with the fallen angels, that they didn't protest anywhere in history. So what I'm getting at is we just don't know. What little we know is that, Eve was deceived. Was it a fraudulent kind of a union? Did she think, one of those wild ideas is that Eve thought she was having sex with God, with Creator Father Yahweh. That should put up a few flares, right? I don't know what to make of that. What I'm getting at, though, is that Eve and Gadriel had sex and gave birth to a hybrid named Cain. Pastor Wiki said it's a hybrid. The word ish is used in there. Well, word meanings change over time, and he was looking at ish as meaning it was a hybrid, because the current uses of the word ish, like British, means, a British man, a Briton. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, as I read the Bible, I read those original passages, and I'm trying to figure out, are we really one race? Or are we separate races? Does race even apply? So I sat and I read my Bible. And it was an NIV study Bible. I've got 4 different Bibles that I draw from, 4 or 5 these days. And I've got a parallel one. It's got 4 other versions too. So basically I read through there and I substituted in the word race. And I went through that kind after kind stuff. Was that race after race? It didn't fit. I wasn't comfortable. And then I decided, okay, let's use species. So I read through species after species. It fit. It fit for me. It might not fit for you. But I think I'm right on this one. Hope you agree. If you don't, that's all right. Put it in the comments. I'm happy with that. If you agree, I'm happy with that too. So basically, Creator Father God made all this stuff the way He wanted it, and He said it was good. He loved it all. Wasn't any problem with it. The problem came when the enemy planted in the field. Now, you know that comes from the New Testament, in which Yahshua the Messiah told us that an enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. Well, that analogy was to let you know that the devil, one of the devils, impregnated Eve. So that's basically what the original sin was. Now, who that's on? Is it on Eve or is it on Gabriel? That's another question. But what I'm getting at in particular is that we're separate species. I think we can acknowledge that. I hope we're grown up enough, mature enough, that we can regard this as a valid intellectual allegation. Okay? And of course, we've gone and we've intermixed. And then we look in the Bible and we see clearly the flood of Noah, all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. Well, does that mean that everybody started becoming gangster? They went gangster? No, I think that it meant that they started interbreeding, if you will, crossing over species. So I think we're different species, and I say that respectfully, not disrespectfully. And we have another problem, though. We've had previous Earth ages with several humanoid species on the planet, including Dragon Man, of all things. That was one of the latest ones discovered about 80,000 years ago, and it's a lot like Caucasians today, except it had a thicker skull. Okay, well, I mean, we all get accused of being thick-skulled, thick-headed sometimes, but you know, I think that would have been a good defensive mechanism to have a little bit thicker skull than what we have today, so a man could survive a blow easier. Better chance of survival. So what happened at Noah's time was the interbreeding got out of hand, and I think the angels were responsible for most of that as well. And there was a lot of violence as a result of that. So an important lesson to learn off Noah's flood is that when you have this cross-pollination, this interbreeding, when you mix species up, you end up with violence eventually, somehow. Now, one of my brothers a while back said, what we learned is that the offspring, there was no problem with them. So the children of the mixed marriage, their children were okay. The problem was in their grandchildren. That's when we got violence. Now, that's what he extrapolated from it. I don't see the support for it. I don't see it against it. I bring it up because I think it's a concept that you ought to know about, and it's worth your time and research. Besides that, you might find something and teach me on this stuff, because I mean, there's nothing more that I like than talking about the truth, what's in the Bible. So, at this point, we've had Neanderthals, and by the way, most of the Neanderthal DNA is in the Orient. I'm not saying that to chide anybody. I think the Neanderthals had a lot going for them, by the way. They were very powerful, and they were far more intelligent. They had language going on. So they weren't Neanderthals as in the racial slur, if you will, or the derogatory characteristics that we assume. We assume we're superior to them, right? Just because they're different. No, the Neanderthals had basic language going on, so they had some better skills. Denison's kind of a wild card in my opinion, because we don't know much about them, but we know they're definitely influencers in the whole thing. And then you got Cro-Magnon. And of course, from my understanding, the Cro-Magnon women, let's put it this way, a Cro-Magnon female dropped into society today would have no problem with defending herself. She'd clean any man's clock she come up against. She was strong, you know. Okay. So I presented a lot of concepts here today. I think the most important thing is that we need to wake up. We need to wake up our brothers and sisters as best we can, as gently as we can, and as fast as we can. Why? Because the descendants of the evil one have taken over the planet today. They're in all branches of government. They hide behind the scenes mostly. They put out frontmen so they can hide back there. They're controlling all of the institutions, most of the corporations. This is the old world order. I'm all for the new world order of the kingdom of heaven upon the earth. I know some of you are going to get confused and misrepresent me on that, but I hope you understand. Eustace Mullins was a great author. A gentleman came from Virginia, and he wrote a book called The World Order. Not the New World Order, but the World Order. And he explained the nature of the interlocking corporate boards, which he had discovered. So basically, you got one big monster out there and all the corporations come out of Rome and Roman law. They're all controlled centrally. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in the United States right now is this too much central government. We need to cut it back as fast as we can. Seriously, we need to cut it back. We can't even hold anything accountable. Even if the president himself, Joseph Robinette Biden, decided that he wanted to hold somebody accountable in the government, I don't think he can. There's not enough controls. There's not enough oversight. There's too much noise in the signal to be able to figure out what the heck somebody's doing in the government. Do you trust this government? It won't take itself apart. We have to do that. And I think we can do that in a civil fashion. We just have to, one, dominate this election, and then get it out of our heads that we're going to dominate the rest by using this government. We absolutely need to chop off parts of this government. Do we need FEMA? I don't know. I don't think we do. Do we need DHS? I don't know. I don't think we do. I think that, as a matter of fact, Homeland Security runs all kinds of interference and probably runs these damn false flags. We don't have to reinvent the government. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to restore it to the original order our founders gave us up until 1812. That's when things went haywire in a real major way. That's when the attorneys got us into the War of 1812. Remember that the attorneys got us into the war. And by the way, we didn't need attorneys very much. Why? We bought more law books and read more law books than any other place on the face of the earth at the time. And so we could go into court and take it on ourselves and argue it. Yes, it was an arduous task. It required a lot of reading, a lot of study, a lot of homework, but we could do it. Today, the way these attorneys and the judges and the way everything is set up, we're not able to do that. Not very well. For one, there's another jurisdiction that's been superimposed upon us that even the attorneys don't seem to understand very well. They're dumbasses when it comes to that. And by the way, Abraham Lincoln was right in some ways. He said all the professions are turned against the laity way back then. And that's the way it is. Of all the professions, the field of psychology has been turned against the United States of America more than any other. Even the field of dentistry, they got the brainwashing going on about fluoridation and about root canals. Bad stuff. And then medical, oh my God. They really should not have any credibility at all, and they shouldn't have a monopoly. And the banks? I think banks should be private, and they should be allowed to fail. If they don't know how to run the business properly, let them fail. And as far as the currency goes, the money goes, there is no money. We have no money. It's all been stolen from us by the banksters. We let that happen in 1913. And they're trashing us right now. They're the ones running the government. They're the ones that are pulling the strings on these puppets in D.C. Well, this is going up on Awakening Israel. In case you're wondering, you're probably a descendant of Israel. You're probably a descendant of Seth. It was the second offspring from Adam and Eve, fathered by Adam on that one. Their first child, Abel, was murdered by Cain, who was fathered by a fallen angel named Gadriel. From Gadriel, we shortened that and got Gad, God. And so they put God throughout the Bible to throw us off so that we would think of Gadriel as our God here. So they've got us all confused, which is why you want to buy my Bible. Because you will see God with a little g as a category, okay? But you're going to see the name of Yahweh, his real name. And you're going to get the real name of Yahshua. You call him Jesus. And you're also going to get a more accurate translation that uses the word Messiah rather than the Christ. These are important things, and there's real advanced lessons I have to take you somewhere, but I don't know if we're ready for it yet. I've got one brother who said there should be no such thing called the Christian religion. When I heard that, I was shaken up. It's like, what do you mean, man? You've been reading the Bible longer than I have. How can you tell me there shouldn't be a Christianity? How can you tell me that? Well, when we go to the Bible and read it, I'll cover that in another video in the future here. And I'm open-minded. If you can beat me out in the argument, please do so, because I'll get to learn. I'm not too old to learn. I'm a very old man, but I'm not too old to learn. I'm going to do some weightlifting today, and I'm probably going to be doing some running tomorrow. Trying to get myself as active as I can here. If you want to help me, like the video, subscribe. If you can't stand my pace, which I don't know. I mean, I listen to me and I kind of like the guy, actually. After all these years of disliking myself, I look at it and go, I kind of like the guy. Feel free to speed it up. I'm going to guess that you can put a 1.5 times speed on this, save yourself some time, and still get the full message. Of course, there are subtle things that I do with the pacing and with my voice, and a lot of this is automatic for me. It's beyond my conscious control, because I've been trained up so well and so thoroughly that I do things automatically. And that's also why I have to speak with one tongue, with one heart. I have to be sincere and honest, because you catch it otherwise. And my Native American friend, Dr. Friend, he told me that's what he liked about me, is that I spoke straight ahead. I was real fortunate to meet him and get to serve him, and I learned quite a bit from him as well. He was my client. Sadly, he failed to take care of himself, and I don't think he's alive today. He was in a vegetative state the last year or so that I visited him, and I went there and I sat with him, and I know that he knew I was there. And even though he couldn't say much, we couldn't communicate very well, that's all it was needed, is I was there for him. That's one thing I learned when I was serving Alaska Natives, is that just being there, keeping your mouth shut, just being there, that's often just enough. But when it comes to awakening Israel, it's not enough. I need your help in this. There's no more important thing than to awaken our brothers and sisters in Israel. I believe we are in the time that, if not cut short, all flesh would pass away. And I think that could mean Adam kind, but it also could be life on the planet, because when I look out there at Mars, I think I'm looking at a planet that the evil ones wrecked a while back. Yeah, I think it's the same guys. They're worshiping Saturn, Saturnalia. They're doing all the same stuff. That's a whole nother planet. All right, may Yahweh bless.